This is the Dissident Peasant podcast. It is October 4th, 2017. I'm your host, Jeff the Dissident Peasant. With me today is a man who needs no introduction, so he won't get one.
Hi.
All right, that's our show. Thanks for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffIsDudeness. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. That bit's getting old already. This is the Crystal Paco, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the Crystal Paco. He's the host and creator of the Crystal Paco Experiment. The Crystal Paco, how are you doing today, man?
God damn it. I was going to say, if you didn't give me an introduction, man, I was all ready for trumpets and everything. I'll take the Crystal Paco. Yes, the Crystal Paco any day of the week, though, man. Good to be on your show, man. I was going to say, good to have you on my show. I'm used to having people on my show sometimes, so I don't go on other people's podcasts very often. But I like your podcast, Jeff. You do a good job, man, and kind of jumped out of nowhere, but you're fun to listen to, man.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. I don't know, I told a few people off mic, but, I pretty much insisted that, I did want to do guests at least occasionally. I try to do one of these once a week, but I absolutely insisted that you be the first because you were the first person to reach out with me and be really encouraging and this kind of stuff. And, I'm the kind of guy who, I'm a sensitive soul and I really appreciate that sort of thing. So there's no one else I'd rather talk to right now than the Crystal Paco, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I know when I started, I started my thing in 2015 and I kind of didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was trying to be too cute by half on a lot of stuff and trying to be weird and different. But it was like a lot of negative comments, a lot of people trying to shoot you down as you get started, right? And they just, quit your, stick to your day job. You have 100 subscribers, blah, 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 blah. They want to throw darts all the time. And it's like, when you hear a word of encouragement from someone who appreciates what you do, it can make a big difference. So yeah, man, I was glad to put some gas in your fire, man, and keep you burning there.
I appreciate that. And one of my pet things these days really, a lot's going on that's important, right? And there's a lot about the future that we got to think about. But, it seems to me that even well-funded leftist media like MSNBC, I'm being generous calling them leftists, but just go with me.
Sure.
Or even NPR or, outfits like that, they're not going to be effective partners in fighting what we're really fighting these days, which is, not just Trump, but it's a right turn towards, really scary, technologically advanced fascism, right? Like, if we really go the way of concentration camps again, or camps of any kind, like the technology and environment that we're in today it's just going to make that stuff a lot crazier. So we don't really have time to mess about. We need to take back political power soon, and we need to do it through the ballot box because the United States government's got flying missiles that shoot rockets now. Right, so we can't really fight predator drones. All I'm saying.
Well, and that's what when people talk about gun rights and stuff, I'm like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, if the government's coming for your guns, first off, they're going to send police and troops and all that other stuff, and the people that you say that you love, but also there are drones and tanks,
right,
and all these other things.
There's no way you're gonna fight off the full might and force of the United States government. Like,
let's just think strategically for a second. Like the way that you would fight against the U.S. government, we've seen it in Iraq and Afghanistan, is IEDs and whatever. I'm not encouraging that by any stretch of the imagination. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like,
as a practical matter, that's how resistance, like armed resistance, would go down.
Absolutely,
hypothetically,
by 1,000 cuts. Yeah. So you try to drain as much money from them as possible. It's like Bin Laden did. That's his stated goal. So, but yeah, the right wing authoritarian turn in this country, that's part of it. Is like this. They stoke this fear that the government's coming for you, so everyone's got to arm up, and it's always the liberals who are going to come do something bad, which is weird because we're a bunch of pussies, and everyone in the army and whatever is conservative. For not everyone, but,
we simultaneously control like the entire media infrastructure in this country, but are also a bunch of like impotent snowflakes. I've always
absolutely.
Anyway, all that's I didn't even really want to ask about any of that. I just really wanted to know, leading to this question, which is like there are tons of things that are important these days in the news: gun rights, income inequality, oil and gas. The banking industry is still out of control, and on and on and on. There's lots of bad stuff going about in American political culture these days. So I'm not really asking about what your priority is, like what's the most important to you, but like what really animates you politically? Like what are you passionate about? Like what issue on the left do you think, really gets like the Crystal Paco out of bed and onto a
Um,
YouTube channel to do what he does?
my my pedigree, my family is like hardcore union, right? We I grew up in a union family. My grandparents were super involved in the union. My grandma was a labor leader, but like she worked in the AFL-CIO and AFSCME, and she was like chief lobbyist and head of consumer affairs or something like that. I can't remember what her exact title was, but like
Mm-hmm.
this was instilled in me from a young age, that certain people will try to divide up the population. Like there's something they did with miners in Minnesota back in the day, and they would keep the Polish immigrants separate from the Finnish immigrants, and then they would pit them against each other and do things so that they would be busy fighting each other, and the people running the mines could take all the money. So I learned that. I can't remember when I learned that. I was a kid, you know what I mean? And I was just like, that is wrong. And then in second grade, I remember I learned about Martin Luther King Jr. and I like understood what segregation was for the first time. And I was like, whoa, that is so messed up. And I became super, super obsessed with Martin Luther King Jr. And I guess my motivating force is the fact that people without power are being beat up more and more each day, right? And it's becoming in vogue. Like, we shit on people who need welfare. We shit on people who need health care. We shit on people who don't get paid. We shit on, single mothers. We shit on people who get arrested for bullshit, marijuana laws or whatever the case is, the new Jim Crow type stuff. We shit on people who are protesting all these things. So my animating, the thing that animates me, I guess, is I need to come out and say to the other side, like, I'm going to shit on you. Okay. There's none of this, like, I'm going to be nice and I'm going to try to win people over. And hopefully maybe someone will see that exchange and see them get ripped apart, because I think it's a lot of the things they do are obviously illogical or intellectually inconsistent. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you can point out how ridiculous their arguments are and how stupid they sound, maybe some people will come over to your side. But that's not my objective. My objective is strictly to go after these punk conservatives and anyone who's going after poor people,
Right.
minorities, whatever the oppressed people are. I stand in oppressed people, and that's my main goal. And there's lots of different ways they get to that type of stuff too. Is it's like it all leads back to one place. Is like they're trying to get money. And
Yeah.
from that, and from that, all the other little things come out of it: the racism, the sexism, the xenophobia, the blah 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 blah.
I mean, I do think for the average Republican voter, like depending on who you're talking about, like yes, it's that stuff that animates them. You know,
Yeah,
racism or gun culture or just a pure tribal identity with the GOP and the military, or whatever. But all of that is really being deployed in service to the rule of a corporate elite in this country, right?
yeah,
Like Congress technically governs us and they have the power of the law, but like at the end of the day, enough of them feel beholden at this particular moment to those business interests that there is literally like no issue that they can even consider doing anything popular on. Like 97% of the country wants universal background checks to buy a firearm, and it can't get passed. And the reason it can't get passed is because the GOP is the NRA's bitch. Like they need that money. They need those crazy foot soldiers and they need that propaganda to stay in power because let me ask you a question, the Crystal Paco. I'm a hypothetical political leader and I want your vote. I've got a central campaign plank to my platform. It is give me your wallet. and I'm gonna take all the money out of it and then give it back to you. You gonna vote for me?
No, I would not vote for you, Jeff.
Right.
Doesn't sound
Nobody
like a
would
good
vote for
plan.
that. Nobody's gonna vote for that. Nobody's ever voted for that. So they gotta
Yeah.
use other things. They gotta use other tricks. They use guns. The oldest is race in the Western Hemisphere, I think. Like, you know anything about the Haitian Revolution, man?
I mean, not like specifically what happened, and that they basically made a pact with the devil, and that's why a hurricane hit them. I think that's how it went down.
I don't. I'm
And then
not a
they killed a
historian.
lot of white people.
I am not a historian. I'm not even a history buff. I'm just a history enthusiast. I don't remember a ton about the Haitian Revolution, but central to the story of how the French tried to fight against the Haitian Revolution. If I recall correctly, it's the only successful slave rebellion in the Western Hemisphere ever.
I
Um,
remember hearing that. Yeah.
it's only happened once. It was the Haitian Revolution, but the way you had to
And I
fight it
think it was,
was
the first like led by African descendant people.
and
The first country led by Africans, if you want to say it that way, whatever,
right.
black people.
And the French way of fighting that is the same way, in a way that we're still using this trick today, which is keep all the poor people from figuring out that they're on the same side. Right?
Yeah,
Because there were
exactly.
tons of really disenfranchised, very poor white people who, on a class basis, like they got no reason to side with the French imperial forces.
No,
you know, but
but
the
but they've been convinced though. Sorry to cut you off.
no
They've
go
been convinced though,
go
like you're saying, that for instance, the reason you are not getting these benefits, the reason that you have not been taken care of by the government, the reason that all of these things are happening to you, and all these negative things are happening to you, is because the people in the cities, the black people,
Mhm.
the Latino people, all the immigrants and whatever, they're getting all the welfare that should be going to you hardworking person who's sitting in a double wide trailer. Like, sorry, like anyway.
I am not in a trailer right now. Thank
No,
you.
not you, Jeff, not you. You're like at least not in a double wide. Sorry.
No, it's a single wide. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I live in a nice little condo. I would say that what animates me really is like, and this is a weird thing for me to say. It's something that I've never really said anything like this publicly, but I'm about to. Because it coming from me, like I'm not sure the message is always like I always feel super comfortable delivering it, but like I've lived among large populations of relatively large populations of black people, right? Like a third of my town, right? So I see them everywhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even though like all my kin, back 2 generations at least, all Southerners, with the exception of my grandfather, who's full blooded Dutchman. Um, you know, I've just I've never understood. Well, I mean, I understand why there's racism, right? But I don't understand like why people don't see that like this is a backwards, force that's been holding us back like over and over and over again in so many different ways. It's caused destruction and death, and it's stopped progress in America from happening.
Yeah.
And
And
so
it's oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean, I think about those people, and I know them. I do this character where I'm the chairman of the League of Extraordinarily Progressive Southern Gentlemen down here in the South. But the truth is that like yeah, I mean I have a few younger friends of the white persuasion, if you will, who are liberal like me, and I can get along with. But most of the people that I enjoy hanging out with and talking to are of all sorts of different races, primarily African American, but mixed, and we have some Filipino here because of the Air Force Base nearby, Koreans too, and I love that vibrant sort of culture, and I've never had any truck with anybody who didn't. I really just haven't because I can count literally dozens of times where everybody says, look at Europe, look at Norway, look at United Kingdom, like they have all these universal welfare states, right? Better than
Yeah.
ours. Why is that? Oh, well, America just can't get over its legacy of white supremacy. And there lies the conversation. Like there, everybody just throws up their hands and says, "Well, ain't nothing we can do about that." And I'm convinced that like as valuable and I whenever possible, I like to let those people speak for themselves. I'm not trying to step up and the black race doesn't need any white knighting by me or anything like that. That's not what this is about. But I'm just saying that in this country, progress gets made on white relations when black activists have white allies. Like it's not black people's job to fix white people for being racist. If it's anyone's job, it's white people's.
But it's a numbers game, right? Because if black people are 13% of the population, if it's only black people out there protesting, if you got 100% of them, you got 13% of the population. Like, sorry, we're still in control, So yeah, white allies, other allies from different races. People need to understand also that race is a social construct.
Right. There's not really much basis for it in biology at all. Like
yeah, exactly. Like people think that's like some hippie stuff. No, I'm talking biologically speaking, race doesn't exist, right? It doesn't exist. And anyone who's using it as a determining factor for how they look at the world is using something that doesn't exist. They're making something out of whole cloth based on someone's appearance, based on the difference in their hair or how much melanin they have in their skin. Like, get over yourself, man.
Or how susceptible they are to sickle cell. Like, that's really all it boils down to. Like, it's just weird little quirks like that. Everything else is just, it's a social construct. I do know that, like, intelligence itself is a construct. I've known plenty of incredibly clever people who were nonetheless convinced of the most insane fairy tales and nonsense that you could possibly believe. Like, look at someone like Ben Carson.
Oh yeah.
I mean, is he not an educated man? Is he not intelligent in his way? Like, did he not save lives and manage complicated surgeries of he and yet like the guy is a complete buffoon and has crazy ideas about I don't even want to really get into his religious faith, but go ahead, man, lay into him. Tell us why Ben Carson sucks.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's amazing to me. I watch. I'm a you could maybe say a strong atheist. I'm not a fan of religion. The people are people, and I love people, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't like using religion to divide people. But as an institution, I think religion is bullshit. Just the same way I think race is bullshit. It doesn't exist. Religion is just something that people use to divide each other, right? Back in the day, it may have served a purpose as a moral code to keep everybody honest, but now we have laws and police and other ways to enforce social contracts. So I don't know. Religion to me, when I was younger, my dad told me basically religion's bullshit. So I come from Russian Jews, and they came over from Russia escaping the pogroms, right? And so my dad, from a very young age, he was raised in a synagogue. He would go to synagogue, and he would also go to Unitarian church with my grandpa on the other day. So then he was getting both sides of things and basically knew it was bullshit. My mom tried to make me believe in God, just like I think it was to keep me in line kind of, but never really pushed it hard. And as I grew up, I was like, oh, God exists, but I don't really know how.
So did you have a Christian education at any point?
No, I didn't have a Christian education, but I thought like if I didn't believe in Jesus and stuff, I would go to hell. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like
that's where it boils down to, really. But go ahead.
Yeah, the argument from this is the argument from contingency that well, if I don't believe him, I'll go to hell. So I better believe in him. Like he can't tell like, you don't really believe in me. You just don't want to go to hell, like. Yeah, he can, if he's
Right.
all
And
powerful and
is
everything.
belief really a choice, or are you compelled to believe what you think is
Yeah,
true?
are you
Um,
brainwashed or something
but
from a young age? So but as I got older, then a lot of that I just got to research, and I looked at things on the internet, and if the internet had been around in the way it is right now with YouTube and everything when I was in high school, I would have done a lot better. Like, so I think that there are different learning styles, but I think it's probably a case by case basis. I don't know how Ben Carson got to a point where all of a sudden he can, like, he has to do some critical thinking to get where he's at to be able to perform surgery. He has to follow logical steps and do things in a certain way and make sure that, all of his ducks are lined up in a row to perform a surgery. But on the other hand, he just throws logic out the window and believes a bunch of nonsense, in my opinion. This, and
well,
especially like the set.
and not even
Go
like
ahead.
we don't even have to like. I don't. I am also a pretty pretty strong atheist, but I don't really want to like lay into religion on the
Yeah.
show. And I'm not saying that you did, but like we don't even need to go there because the things that he believes just about like the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is the most relevant thing. That's the department he runs now,
Oh yeah.
inexplicably somehow, right? And he
Yeah.
has no idea how to make it run well. He has no idea what it should be doing and how to accomplish that goal well or why it's important. Like he has no experience with public housing. He has never lived in public housing. He's just some random doctor who, this is cronyism, right?
Yeah. No, and they put him up there. He did his thing. He was a good soldier and stood in line for Trump and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they put him up in front of HUD because they can say, well, we got a black guy there. So when they try to rip everything down in HUD, they can say, no, it's not about taking things away from minorities or whatever.
Yeah,
We have
look,
a
we.
black guy there. Look, that's our
Ugh,
black friend. So,
Jesus is
and
like,
then Ben
yeah.
Carson is just like, whatever. I don't even know what's going on. And so, and the only time he thinks logically is when he's in an operating room.
Right.
So whatever somebody tells him, whatever right wing talking point they feed him, he'll just buy it, and he thinks that God will take care of everything, and everything's in God's plan and whatnot. So it'll work out. It'll be fine. And that's also my
Now I'm
problem
sure
with
God will
religion.
show up and give them all houses. That will happen.
Yeah. Well, he'll think and pray about it a lot. Thoughts
Right.
and prayers.
Um. So I think we have to talk about Puerto Rico at least some because it's just such a huge story. Like to my mind, I did not look today, but the last time I looked, the only death numbers I could find were still only 16. But I just know I, I'm as sure as I can be of anything really that the number is going to be much higher than that at the end, and we're probably going to go into the hundreds because it looks like large hospitals and assisted living places and people like that like who couldn't get access to medicine or needed power in order to breathe.
Yeah.
All everyone like that is dead who was on the island. So um yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
I was
Go
telling you
ahead.
yesterday that my dad does a bunch of emergency management stuff, and he's he was there after Katrina, Rita, and when he went down to Katrina, the thing that a lot of people didn't realize, or the death toll numbers come out, and then the waters recede, and then you go door to door and you find dead people everywhere, and all of a sudden that number goes up and up and up and up. So it gets worse and worse and worse as you go on. You know what I'm saying? So right now, I just Googled it. The death toll's at 34.
Wow.
So
So yeah.
jumped up in the last day. So it still isn't as bad as Katrina. All right, just keep that in mind. It's not a real disaster.
We're
Not a real
hundreds
disaster yet.
we're hundreds or thousands died. I don't know. A
Yeah.
lot.
And then in the wake of it, all the people who don't get food and housing and
Look,
all that other stuff.
he can't even be bothered to like look it up or have someone look it up. Like he doesn't know. He's so like this is the particular danger of Trump. Like I know I make a big a spiel about really Trump is not the enemy. He's the product of the enemy. right?
Correct.
Our enemy are the forces behind his rise, not really him himself.
Yep.
Because Pence in the chair, a lot of the hashtag resistance goes away, and that just that would disturb me because that would also he would also be unacceptable to me
Yep.
as a candidate. Uh, but in any case, moving on, Trump is just so bad at even the pretending necessary, right, to come off as a credible leader in these times. Like I don't know enough about the intricacies of the federal government to know how integral the president's leadership is in terms of like getting things done. But you know, if I was a manager in this situation, I would, and I have managed people before, to good effect. I think, I would be like, not kicking their asses literally, but like screaming into the phone, like, okay, where is this? Like, where is the army? Why are they not moving? What do I need to sign? Who do I need to talk to? Where's the cabinet secretary? Where's he? Where Let's get things going because it took days to mobilize, and in that time, that's really like the golden window, I think, for saving a lot of these people. Maybe you could tell me if I'm right about that.
Well, I mean, absolutely, because in the wake of that, the giant storm. Jackson, be quiet. My dog's growling at the mailman now.
Sweet. Hey, Jackson.
In the wake of that storm is that you have a lot of people hanging on, and maybe people have severe injuries or whatever. Like, they need medicine. They need to see a doctor for whatever the hell's going on. Like, there's like medical emergencies don't stop. By the way, when things happen, like it's not just the effect of the storm right now. Like, people still have heart attacks. People still
Right.
get robbed and things like
Or they
things
break their
still happen
leg.
outside of the response,
Or
and you
they.
still have to respond to it, or you know what I'm saying? So things that don't happen because of the storm, you still have to deal with in that chaotic scene. So the fact that you're going to drag your feet a couple days and not get maybe the National Guard there because of, they say, because of posse comitatus and other different restrictions, because it's a territory and not a state, right? But I guarantee if that territory were full of white people, that response would be 100% different, and everybody would be on the ground ASAP. They'd be working with the local government and making sure that things got taken care of. Like, they would be screaming in the phone.
I
Like,
am not a lawyer, but I've never been more sure about any law related matter than this. Like who brings that lawsuit, and is the first question I have, and the second is
yeah.
like, what standing do they have? And my third question is like, and what's the harm and remedy here? And I don't think the answer to any of those questions, like after an immediate emergency is passed, like is gonna be like convincing to a judge. So like that's posse comitatus is, I think, probably just a paper thin rationale
All this shit's
to just hide
paper
behind.
thin. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And it's
like
like, let's punch some holes in this paper, man, because your argument's bullshit. So.
right, like they're just grasping for straws, and he's out there like cheerleading about it. It's really like disgusting.
Yes.
Serious,
And
and
then him throwing,
those
throwing
videos of
and
him
this is
like tossing goods into the
God,
crowd.
you know what? And it's like,
Oh my
maybe in the
god!
first week, if he had done this, like, I would have been like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. And then I saw this and I'm like, this fucking guy, like, he doesn't stop. It's going to be another thing tomorrow where he'll be out, like, who knows, like in a swimming pool, like sitting in a hot tub looking at the refugees somewhere and being like, oh man, I
Like
don't even know
how
what
little
the hell
self
else he could do
awareness.
that's worse. But then he goes and he does it. You know what I mean? Like,
Here's a question I got for you, Chris.
he
How
goes and rents a room at the Mandalay Bay or something when he goes to Las Vegas. You know
how
what I'm saying?
how little self awareness do you need to have in order to shit on the mayor of San Juan, Puerto
For
Rico,
real.
on Twitter from your palatial golf estate in New Jersey?
I know.
Like,
Even like a smart evil dickhead wouldn't say anything in public, and then they would do all the things like they do, like Mike Pence, right? Mike Pence would send out a tweet that said, we're standing with Puerto Rico and blah 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 blah,
Thoughts
and
and
then
prayers.
he would be like, that fucking bitch, like, you know what I mean? So, like, he doesn't even have that filter, and that's why he got elected, because people like that thing, and that's what you get, folks.
Finally, well, I don't know how much time you got, man. Got a few more
I'm
minutes.
good.
I wanted to
As
ask
long as you
you
want.
one. This is not really. This is the toughest question I have on my list. Really, I'd say.
Yeah.
Which is the Crystal Paco. What would he affix a label to himself? Would he call himself a Democrat, a liberal socialist, a democratic socialist, full-on communist, a Trotskyite? Are we talking to the Crystal Paco, the Trotskyite, sir? How communist are you on a scale of 100 to 1,000? Go.
It's funny because my grandparents, the ones I was telling you about, they were secret communists. And so my grandpa was a communist and served in the United States military and was deployed during World War II. I think he was in, I want to say he was somewhere out in Korea or something. I can't remember. He wasn't like storming the beach on Normandy. My other grandpa did that. But so like I have patriotic communists in my bloodline, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from a little bit. But I definitely understand there are problems with every economic model that you want to use for society, right? If you want to go libertarian or capitalist or communist or whatever, and it's all about finding that balance. And me personally, I don't want to stick a label on myself. I am registered as a Democrat in Minnesota so that I can vote in the primaries, like I did for Bernie Sanders. But I don't even know if I'm registered. You just show up for the caucuses. But anyway, I think you might have to sign up when you get there. But if I had to put a label on myself, I would say I'm a democratic socialist, right? I think that things everybody uses should be public: healthcare, water, air, police, fire, education, those types of things, internet. Those things should all be in the public domain, right? Banking, for sure.
And then,
leave the t-shirt making up to the t-shirt companies. You know what I'm saying? So that type of stuff that not everybody needs or uses all the time, we'll let the private sector take care of it. I don't need the government to make a toothbrush for me. But, if I need healthcare, I don't want to have to depend on a company that's trying to make money.
I think I'm basically in the same boat. I'm not always sure. Like, a lot of times I just call myself a liberal. Like we could, obviously pretty much anyone who listens to this is gonna be voting Democratic. So they're all quote unquote Democrats. Really, where it counts in terms of like the choice that they have to make in our political system. But in terms of like political philosophy, I don't like liberal is the worst word there is to say around here. Like, I would talk to like stupid ass rednecks as a liberal redneck and ask leading and pointed questions to sow doubt in their own minds. And a lot of times at the end of the conversations they would end with like well, but you're okay to talk to, man, because you're not a liberal. And I was just like, no, I'm pretty damn liberal, man. Really? Yeah, I don't really think you're a real liberal, man.
Well, and that's when you go point, and it's like Obamacare, right? People put labels on these things. The Republicans are really good at this, branding things and making them sound negative, right? And they drilled liberal into everyone's head as a bad word. So anytime you say, I'm a liberal and I believe in these things, then they'll throw the baby out with the bathwater. But if you go with them on a issue by issue basis, like Obamacare, and we say, here's the thing in Obamacare, aka the Affordable Care Act. Do you like this? Oh, I like that Affordable Care Act thing. Do you like this exact same thing in Obamacare? Hell no, government run healthcare and blah 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 blah. So yeah, I think avoiding labels is important to a certain extent, so people can't pigeonhole you, right? But it also is important to be able to identify somebody. Like, if you say you're a Republican, right off the bat, I'm writing you off. I don't got a fucking thing to listen to from you.
I mean, yeah, that's actually kind of useful. I mean, I'm not real into labels too, but that was particularly useful to me these days because it means like I basically don't have to take you seriously at all
Yeah.
anymore. Like I know exactly what I'm talking to, and if I'm trying to come at you with an argument or whatever, at best I'm putting a bit
Where?
of fun, or I'm trying to convince people who are watching or listening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm basically just
Cutting
like
out.
pro small folk. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry, I guess shitty internet. I pay so much for it. How much do you pay for your internet, Chris?
$60 a month or
Holy
something
shit,
like that.
dude.
Let me be
like
clear too. When I
It's
talk about
mine's like closer to 90. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
when I talk about the internet, like I don't mean the government should regulate what's on the internet. Obviously, child porn and things like that we don't want out there, but once they need to set up the infrastructure, right? They need to do the digging the digging up the land and putting all the broadband and getting high speed internet to the people and then allowing them to do whatever they want. And that allows the private sector to do all sorts of things that it couldn't do before. Small mom and pop businesses out in the middle of nowhere that couldn't get started because they didn't have good
I mean, it's
internet.
a utility. At this point, it's a utility. Like it's a necessity in order to get a job or an education in this country.
Yeah.
My last question is, I gotta call you.
Oh, hold on! Before you get to that,
Go ahead.
I got this up right here.
Go.
I took the political compass test the other day.
Oh yeah.
And so I am more collectivist and more libertarian, I think. How does that work? Yes.
Well, like probably civil libertarian, right? Like
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I'm more collectivist and more libertarian than Gandhi. So like I'm in the far lower left-hand corner. And to give you an idea of what liberals, quote unquote, are today, Dave Rubin was just to the right, or he's in the same quadrant as Milton Friedman.
Dave Rubin is a liberal, my ass is all I'm saying about that.
Absolutely.
Like, the fact that I can't believe he gets away with branding himself that way.
H.A. Goodman, man, he tweeted me the other day, like I watched the video of his where he said we can't have any gun laws because people will still stab each other.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about? I don't know. We could talk a little about H.A. Goodman if you want, because he's
real briefly because he put out that video and I was just like, am I really listening to a guy who claims to be
what
liberal?
Do you think?
And
his
he starts
game
off with
is?
a bunch of Hillary's emails. He's got 2 books about Hillary's emails, and then he goes into a bunch of stuff about how we can't change gun laws because people can make bombs.
Yeah, what do you think?
Nothing you said there is liberal.
What do you think? Yeah, what do you think his game is? Like, who's he? What is he just like trying to play to?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. Once again, I don't know how people can logically compartmentalize themselves like this and say that I'm a liberal and I'm going to listen to this guy who does right-wing talking points all day. Right? You're at some point when you start hearing words that could come out of Sean Hannity's mouth, you should, have some alarm bells.
Right? Yeah, like and that's what I tell the hashtag resistance crowd a lot. Like, look around you, see who your fellows are. Like, I'm not saying you're responsible for their actions, but like when you find yourself in their camp, like I just think you need to take a good long look at why that is and if that's okay.
Yeah. And it's funny to me too that a lot of these people who were before the election saying that there's going to be a big sea change. I was one of those people too for a minute. Like, seriously, for like a day, I was like, fuck it, I'll vote for Donald Trump. And this was like right at the start of the election. I'm like, if Hillary gets in, I'll vote for Donald Trump.
That's fine.
Yeah. And then that was for a day. And then I'm like,
I mean, that vote wouldn't be fine, but your doubt is fine.
No, but then I'm like, this dude's going to be Hitler. And I can't deal with Hitler in office. And I didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. I was in Minnesota and I said, I'm going to vote for Jill Stein. It'll be safe and whatnot. But like, the revolution coming was something that I thought was really cool for a second, right? And hopefully I was hoping to battle on Hillary Clinton and push her in my direction, right?
If she was an opponent we could definitely beat. I
But I
thought.
understood that
Like when
I
she's
think
in
it was
office, we could
Marx. I
bend
think it was
her.
Marx who said, like, it's good to burn the shit down and then start all over and have a real revolution. But these people who were pushing that idea all the way up till election day are still hanging on to the fucking election and bitching about Hillary Clinton, and they are not in the revolution right now. They're fighting Democrats, right? So I understand there's certain Democrats you have to get after, and this is a time where everyone needs to get on the same page in terms of like this neoliberal bullshit is not working, and you're not going to win an election with it. You're not going to win over white Southern voters. You're not going to win over
I
all the
mean,
demographics
the
that you need
bottom
to.
line is Hillary Clinton maximized that potential with her campaign. Like, I don't
Yep.
know what she possibly could have done to get a single more suburban Republican vote
Yeah.
than to run the way she did. And
And she knew
so,
better. She knew better. That's
like,
my thing that really pisses
well,
me off.
my
You
my
knew
only
you
my
shouldn't
point is
run.
like my only point is, look, it'd be one thing, like, I'd still be suspicious and not necessarily supportive of that decision on the merits, because I worry about what political coalition you're assembling on purpose, because I think that tells me what your priorities are. But
Yeah.
if it had worked, if it had blown him out of the water, and given him 112 electoral votes, I would have said, well, you pulled it off, and you pulled it off big. So okay, I'm a
Yeah.
little less, objection slightly
Yeah.
withdrawn, right? But the fact that, like, you went all in on it, and I took the time to, bend the knee at the time, and I told everyone I could to vote for Hillary Clinton. I swear to God, I convinced a dozen Georgians by myself to do it at least. Like, and
Yeah.
these are
And
people
that
that
was
were
one of the
hard.
states.
It was
That
a
was
hard sell too, and and I told them that, like, look, her popular vote total is gonna matter, and that, like, look, you cannot endorse this. This is a dark fascism turn here, like in Trump, that you're seeing. Like, you cannot vote for this. It is do or die time. I know I hate Democrats too, but we have to band together, and and it didn't work. It didn't
yes.
work. We lost. So like,
So
their
that's my
their
problem with all these.
credibility with the voters should be zero. Like, you
Yeah.
know, we
People
shouldn't
who
be
want to
listening to
shit
those
on
people,
Bernie or whatever. Yeah. People who want to still say
or
like,
blame him
Peter Dow or
somehow.
whoever, like people that still think Hillary Clinton was a good candidate or are still complaining about like why people didn't like her. Like people didn't like her, and we knew that people didn't like her, and we knew that putting her up would be a problem and she might not get elected. Some people knew that. Like I definitely assumed she was going to win on election
I
day,
did. I admit
but
it.
I wasn't like if I had to put money on it, I would have said that she would have won, right? But I was definitely not convinced. I didn't know for certain. And when I saw her lead evaporating in all these swing states, I'm like, oh my God, she's going to blow this thing. Like I wasn't. So, this was, you could have seen it a mile away, man, or
Well,
more than a mile
in the
away.
Comey letter clearly was by itself a but for, right? Certainly.
Yeah.
And like, not everything that caused her to lose was her fault. But the reason we focus on the campaign that she ran is because, like, we can all agree that's the one thing she has absolute control over,
Yeah.
right? And so, like,
And
yes, it's okay to talk about Russia. It's okay to talk about Kobe. It's okay to talk about idiots like Jimmy Dore and H.A. Goodman and Jill Stein and all their, contributing factors. But in terms of, like, the next election, the lesson we need to learn is, like, how the campaign was run. And to that end, like, yes, the campaign of this person who says she's never going to run for president again is still important. Because if we learn the wrong lesson, they will beat us again. And the
yes.
longer they stay in power, the longer they have control over the apparatus of the security state in this country, the harder it's going to be to dislodge them.
And
I'm
this kind
I'm
of goes
I'm serious.
back. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier too. Like if you're going to go into a rural area that maybe does not have the affection for minorities that maybe you have in a larger city, right? And you say, hey, man, we got to get along here. Black lives matter. Women's equality is important, right? And Donald Trump is really mean to people. They're going to say, and what? Like, you're not offering me anything, and I don't necessarily want to get along with those people.
Yeah, and like, oh, that's fine, I guess, or not. But like, they're more concerned with what are you going to do for them? Go ahead. No, that's all.
Exactly. You actually do have to present a policy, right? And you do have to say that the Republicans are not doing that for you, and they're lying and they're full of shit. So there are two things that you have to do. You have to actually point out the problem, right? You can't just say, well, I'm a Democrat and I think things are good and blah, 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 blah. You have to come out and throw flames at your opponent, right? And then you have to show them what an actual agenda that works for them looks like, right? And I'm not going to push bills to make it easier to buy a silencer. Like, who's sitting there like, I can't put food on my table. I really wish I could buy a silencer right now. Like, no, it doesn't follow like that, man. So you got to have a message for people, something they can take away from the election, and not just maybe I can get along with people I don't want to get along.
And what I keep saying is like, look, I hate to put it this way, but this is the way it is. Like, in our current electoral system, as it is running, the Democratic Party needs some racist white people to vote for it. And the only way to get them to do it is to, offer them something. And, like, economically, it boils down to cold, hard cash in the form of, like, health insurance and better wages and better schools and rising property values in their community because it's making investments and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Like, that, you don't have to win all of them or even most of them. You just have to win some of them. And, of course we all agree that, like, we can't abandon, our commitment to egalitarianism in all fields, gender and race, class, all of this. Like, I'm not talking about selling out anybody's allies of color or religious minorities or anything like that. But I'm just saying that, like, we have to play the game as it's rigged. And in this system, like, we're going to need some of those white voters who aren't enlightened on race to vote for us. Like, you see those people in West Virginia who, like, loved Bernie Sanders so much. All those, like, white hillbilly folk, my kind of progressive Southern gentleman types, right? But, like, let's all be real for a second. I don't know those people. You don't know those people. But I would bet they don't all have super great opinions on African Americans or Muslims, right? Or Arabs. And yet they're all going to Bernie Sanders rallies, right?
They all have the same black friend. Like Steve.
Yes, it's all the same. Just the one dude. Anyway,
Steve?
Yeah, everybody knows Steve, man. He's great. He's one of the good ones. In fact, he is the only one of the good one.
Yes.
So I think that's probably enough for today. My guest today was the Chris LAPAKKO. Yes, the Chris LAPAKKO, proprietor of the Chris LAPAKKO Experiment. The Chris LAPAKKO, my good friend and comrade. Tell us about how people can find you. How can people support you?
The best way to find me is to go to patreon.com/theexperiment. I got a picture or a video of Donald Trump right at the top, and it's him trying to read, and it's pretty funny. And if you click on that, it'll take you to my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to me on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at the Chris LAPAKKO. Thanks a lot for having me on, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for coming, guys. That was the Chris LAPAKKO, patreon.com/theexperiment. Good job, Chris. I'll talk to you later, man.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good one, bud.
You too.